Thank you. Third time the charm. All right, everyone. My name is Zhivko. You can call me Z, and I'm here to talk about financial primitives for NFTs. So we're going to look at loans, real estate, renting, and other more complex primitives that are forming the financial ecosystem for NFTs. Let me see if this works. All right. So GM, first and foremost, may just talk about that because it's all we have. It's a bear market. NFTs are dead. But no, seriously, like these last 2 days have been really inspiring. I saw so many people building around NFTs and not just collections. I saw some amazing collections, but we have so many teams building cool primitives and tools for NFTs, which makes me super bullish on the whole ecosystem. And while we may not have figured it all out yet, we're building quite hard as an ecosystem, and everyone is experimenting, and I'm quite bullish on the space. And this is an artist called Dark Farms that posts really nice daily GM pictures on Twitter. Quick intro on myself. So I'm part of LimeChain, which is a blockchain development company. We've been building stuff since 2017. And I'm also co-founder of EnterDAO, where we're building DeFi and GameFi tools for the Web3 metaverse. We have two products that we're working on, a land renting marketplace called Landworks and a gaming platform called Metaportal. So step back really quickly, like what are NFTs? And the point I'm making there is that NFTs are essentially assets, but before that, NFTs are art, profile pics, access to your favorite community. They could be the in-game items or characters that you play your favorite games with, but they could also be music or financial instruments like a Uniswap V3 position is an NFT. An on-chain deposit can also be an NFT. An NFT is a representation of ownership, but all NFTs are assets. And just like cash or any other assets, those assets can be idle or those assets can be put to work. And I've been told that in order to make it, your assets should do the work for you. So we're going to look at different options to make your NFT assets work for you in the slides. And it's not going to be a talk about one single solution or shilling my project, but it's going to be an overview of the whole NFT financial ecosystem, and we're going to look briefly at different primitives and different projects. So another step back. So if we look at how DeFi developed, and DeFi is following kind of like the same timeline of the traditional financial system. So first we had trading, and like in DeFi it was DEXs and peer-to-peer exchanges. In TradFi, like people were trading commodities between themselves like a few thousand years ago. And then we had lending and borrowing. And then we had more sophisticated financial tools like insurance, in the case of TradFi and DeFi, options, on-chain derivatives, fixed income instruments, and whatnot. And the NFT financial ecosystem is following in similar path. So we started with trading, which is basically like OpenSea. We are transitioning to NFT-backed loans. We're seeing primitives like fractionalization, real estate, NFT renting, and options and more complex financial instruments. So in my talk, I'm going to unpack all of these one by one, with the exception of trading, which is easy, right? You go on OpenSea, you buy a picture of a cartoon animal and you profit. Unless you buy the wrong cartoon animal and then you have to work for the rest of your life, which kind of sucks. So NFT-backed loans. It's basically borrowing money using your NFT as collateral or providing the liquidity for that as a lender. And we've had a few teams that have been here these couple of days presenting different NFT-backed loan solutions, which were all amazing. The few that I have here is just NFTfi, MetaStreet, that is kind of like working on a yield aggregator solution, and then Floaty, which is the first loan marketplace on Flow for NBA Top Shot NFTs. And if we look at NFT-backed loans, usually it's the borrowers that set the term. So I would deposit my NFT and I will ask for a certain loan. And then the lender can choose to give it to me or make a counter offer. And the big challenge there is appraisal. We have like guys like NFT Bank or Upshot that are working on appraisal solutions for these platforms. but we still have to see how the whole thing develops, and it's currently used mostly for art or PFPs, and it would be curious to see once the NFT ecosystem matures, what future use cases we will have there. And after lending or NFT-backed loans, we saw fractionalization of high-value digital art like punks, art blocks. Fractional was a pioneer in that. We also had Partybid, which was basically a cool tool that you and your friends could go bid on an NFT. We had some cute Twitter storms around Partybids. But the big challenge there, or challenge that we see, and we're kind of working to solve it at EnterDAO, is preserving utility of those assets once it's fractionalized. Because it works well for art, like punks, art blocks, whatever, but if it's like a really expensive in-game asset, whether it's land or a character, once you fractionalize it, for the most solutions out there that are on the market, like you use the utility, which is a challenge. But then again, for art, it works great because it unlocks your liquidity and collective ownership. And again, this would get really interesting once we move past the art and we see how financial instruments or yielding NFTs or real estate can be fractionalized. And speaking of real estate, something which became really popular last year with the whole metaverse narrative. So we started out with NFTs and JPEG Summer, and then the whole space kind of transitioned to the whole metaverse narrative. Mark Zuckerberg renamed Facebook, whatever. But real estate on the blockchain can be looked at from 2 points of views. You can look at in real life real estate, such as a house in New York or whatever, that can be sold on the blockchain, and there have been many teams that have worked on that unsuccessfully, unfortunately, and there have been many well-funded teams working on that. The big challenge there is regulatory, so how do you connect the on-chain transactions and everything to the real world, like real estate registry, depending on the legislation. On the other hand, we have digital real estate, which is obviously metaverse land, which has become super popular in the last 12 months or so. And by metaverse land, this is usually Decentraland Sandbox, Somnium Space, or any other virtual world game that has real estate or land. Obviously, those are NFTs. And some people kind of draw comparisons to actual real estate. They're saying that location matters. This is a big question, really depends on the game itself. Because, for example, in Sandbox, parcels that are close to Snoop Dogg are more expensive because you're close to like Snoop Dogg and it's cool. But in Decentraland, you have some like districts, but there's a big question of does location really matter if you are still able to bring your community in that location or attract the attention that you need. The second big debate on virtual real estate is the whole notion of land scarcity. So Decentraland, Sandbox, and most of the other metaverses have decided that, or have acted upon the notion that land should be scarce, and there's like a limited supply of parcels that are going around. The other, I would say, crew, or the other wing, is that we're in the metaverse and land should be infinite. We can create as much as possible. One of the most popular projects, or a game that I also play from time to time, is called Nifty Island, and they believe that land should be full, no need to be scarce. But the big question that rises up is that, or at least my understanding of it, is that land in the metaverse could be not scarce, so it could be infinite, but attention isn't. And basically value to land accrues by driving attention, and this comes through the actual content that the game provides. And with scarce virtual land, we are starting to see interesting financial tools or primitives. So renting is something that we're working on, and we think that enables a lot of use cases, and it empowers brands to actually provide metaverse experiences for the audience. Land can also be used for ad pays, and as the whole space matures, we're going to see hopefully instruments like mortgages and whatnot that are traditionally common to traditional real estate. So on the renting side, on the renting thing, we have a land renting marketplace called Landworks, which has over 100 parcels that are listed for rent, and then you have generic NFT renting platforms like Rentable, ReNFT, and whatnot. And those are great, and we think that renting is a huge enabler for the whole metaverse space, whether it's gaming or metaverses and virtual real estate. So on the metaverse side, renting enables people to create experiences, whether it's concerts, community talks, events, whatnot, by just simply renting land. But on the other side, if we're looking at games, renting characters and in-game assets is actually really interesting. And this is kind of on the, based on the notion of how guilds were formed. So essentially for Axie at some point became too restrictive for users to play, so guilds acquired assets and then they started out giving scholarships. But now we've reached a point where the bigger guilds or the more well-funded guilds have more assets than they have scholars or interesting games to play. So renting could actually be seen as a competitor to guilds, or it could be seen as an enabler for guilds to actually get liquidity on their assets or income through renting and become more of portfolio managers rather than an actual gaming guild. The big challenge behind renting, especially for in-game assets, is that once it's rented, how do you keep utility? Like if we look at ReNFT, usually once an item is rented, it gets wrapped, which usually kills the utility for the NFT itself. Something which we've proposed, and it's actually an interior improvement proposal that is going to be merged this week, is EIP 4400. It essentially adds a consumer row or a renter row next to the owner row in the ERC 721 contract standard itself. So Decentraland has this by default, where they call it the operator row, but you have an owner and an operator, which could be two different addresses, and the operator can actually build and deploy scenes. If we have this consumer or renter row for any in-game assets, basically there could be a distinction between the owner of the asset and the user of the asset, which starts to get really interesting. So we're currently working to solve renting as a space, and we're not quite there yet. We have some MVPs on the market. Obviously, the whole space needs to mature. But after renting, we're obviously going to see some more complex financial instruments like derivatives, options, insurance, and whatnot. So, for example, NFTX have been doing indices for quite some time for the bigger collections like punks and whatnot. But we still lack critical financial infrastructure around NFTs. Options or flow perps is something which I think could be a huge market for the whole space, because currently NFT trading is mostly buying and selling, meaning that there is no way to bet against a collection or bet for a collection to go up in value unless you buy the whole asset. And some assets are quite expensive and restrictive for people, like not everyone can afford a punk or ape. And we think that options are going to be quite an enabler for the space, but it's still going to be just a bigger casino for everyone to gamble, and it's mostly on the financial side of things. There are a couple of protocols working on it, like I know Feta, and there was another one which I forgot, but we're going to see NFT options this year for sure. NFT insurance is something that I still haven't seen, but could be quite interesting because a lot of people get hacked, or they lose their NFTs, or they get worked. And not NFT, but insurance exists for the DeFi space for quite some time with Anchor, Bridge Mutual, and whatnot. So looking forward to seeing insurance, and also looking forward to who knows what else we're going to come up with in the space. That's pretty much it. Happy to dive into Q&A. This is my Twitter or Telegram for whoever wants to get in touch. Thank you.